coming up on Not the End, NDE.
And I felt like they knew me because they called me by my name kind of thing. Like they knew me, and I kind of felt like it was God in some ways, because as you're trying to approach this, who does that? Who has the power to take over your mind and your consciousness and speak to you and take control of your body? Only I think of God that would do that.
Many have died and returned to tell of their near-death experiences. Their incredible stories reveal to the living that this is not the end.
My name is Mary Jo, and when I was 5, I had a near-death experience in 1976. And just a short version of myself, my mom, her name was Patricia. She was from Portugal, and she was a single mom. And she had just had my little brother in 1974. So in 1976, I was 5 and he was about to hit 2. And my mom never knew how to swim. And so she was very strict about rules about if we went to the pool at the apartment complex, because we lived right across the street from it. And back in the 70s, it was not a law that required that fences be placed around or gates be placed around pools for safety for children. This was something that eventually they would, enforce later on down the road. So my mom had a very strictness about us staying at I had a little brother, so basically it was just me, but I had to stay at the stairs, and I couldn't go farther than that. So one morning I had woke up early in the morning, just getting up, and my mom's still asleep with my little brother. And I had gotten up. I don't know what I was dreaming about, why I had this need and desire and sensation to go swimming, get out the door and go swimming, because my mom was asleep. So maybe I was just thinking, oh, now's the time that I can go out there and I can actually try the water in the pool. Very, very obviously innocent and not understanding about safety of water. But I just really wanted to get out there. So I had managed to jump up the back of the couch and reached up and undid the chain that was up on the top corner of the apartment door. And I proceeded to go outside. I ran across the asphalt. I still remember that. I remember running across the grass till I got to the cement area where the pool was at. And I got to the stairs, and I immediately went to the wall, and I shimmied myself all the way over towards the deep end, which was 9 feet at the time. And so when I got to that side, I got all excited about experiencing with it, that I was holding onto the wall, and I would stretch my legs out, just stretching and enjoying the area, and then I would come back in, and then I would do it again, and then I would come back in. But by the time I did it again, this next time, I really kicked too hard to when I pushed, I kicked myself off from holding onto the wall, and I immediately went underwater and I sunk to the floor. And I'm literally standing at the bottom of the pool, and I'm looking around, and I'm looking at my feet. I see the drain. I look at the wall and the smoothness of it, white wall. The sun's shining through the rays because it was becoming morning time in San Diego. And so I'm looking at the wall, and then I'm thinking, well, how am I going to get out of here? And it wasn't long before I needed to breathe. It wasn't long before I was in immense pain of needing to breathe and having that understanding that I was dying and that I was accepting it. But something overcame me, and I had some crackling going on in my head. I keep thinking about this too, because I was standing at the deep end of the pool, and I'm just a little girl, 9 feet of water. Maybe it was just like my ears wanted to pop, but it didn't feel like that. It felt just like a lot of static going on in my head, and I could feel this thing taking over me, and I'm in this warm type of bubble, and the pain went away, and this presence was standing behind me. And it's like I interrupted his day, because he says, okay, Mary Jo, this is what I need you to do. I need you to jump for me. I felt from that voice all powerful. I felt a little scared of it when it talked to me. I felt like I was busted also at the same time because I knew I had snuck out and now I'm in trouble because I need help. And the voice says to me and calls me by my name. So that kind of even makes it even more. But to me, when I look at it now as an adult, this person was being very caring and thoughtful and concerned about how they were going to help me. And, so this is the kind of like the balancing between 5 and now 53. So now that I get to look at this and really talk about this, I actually started talking about it in 2019 because I never spoke about my near-death experience. I thought people would thought I was crazy. So I just kind of kept silent a long time ago. Being a kid, you don't know how to explain that. It's just, you just try to put it behind you. But the voice says, I need you to jump. And of course, I was, agreeing, okay, let's go. Let's start jumping. He's okay, Mary Jo, I need you to jump. And again, I was in a warm bubble. I felt like they had hugged me, like just kind of giving me like a pat on my shoulder, like everything's going to be okay. And I had this automatic understanding that they were taking me across to the shallow side. And I say they, but I'll get there. And I'm going to take you to the other side. And then I understood that the reason why, so basically it wasn't my time to die. And that if my mom was to find me, dead in the pool, drowned, she would have jumped in that water to go and save me or get me. And she would have drowned and she would have died. And then my little brother would have been by himself. So these were things that I understood. And I believe that those were, after reading other people, hearing other people's stories, those are downloads of information. And so as I'm jumping, I feel this swishing as I'm jumping up into the water. I'm going up and down underwater, being swished through the side. A beautiful woman's voice was intertwining with his voice. I think that was to keep me calm. So I don't know anything about that, but I just know I felt very powerful with the being was the man. And so I was listening to him, and as I kept jumping, we managed to get to the shallow side of the pool. And as I started jumping, all of a sudden, all of that pain from needing to breathe, that desperation of needing to breathe, all came back. And I don't know if that's what they call free will, but I literally, when I made that final jump and I got up, my head barely popped out of the water. I got a few minutes of breath, or not a few minutes, but like a couple seconds of breath, and then I went back down under. And as I kept jumping, when I would pop my head up, I would get more air. So as I kept jumping and doing that, up and down, I was feeling better with air until I got to the stairs. And when I got to the stairs of the pool, the voice says to me very sternly, I felt powerful, I felt busted by him, and like I was having a lesson learned. And the voice said, now I don't want you to do this again. Now go home. And that was it. I never looked back. I did not see this person. I don't think I was supposed to see anything. I just don't remember that as far as not seeing anything. It was all about feeling, touching, warmth. I felt warm. There wasn't like this, like some people say in their stories, this immense love. I mean, obviously that was love because they cared for me, and I felt like they knew me because they called me by my name kind of thing. Like they knew me, and I kind of felt like it was God in some ways, because as you're trying to approach this, who does that? Who has the power to take over your mind and your consciousness and speak to you and take control of your body? Only I think of God that would do that. So that's my story. And when I got into the apartment, obviously I had changed my clothes because it was freezing. It was in the morning. And I changed my clothes, and obviously I had left them on the bathroom floor. I got dressed, and then parts of that information is blurry. My mom gets up in the morning and she says, "Why are there wet clothes on the floor?" And I didn't say anything, and she didn't ever pursue it. My mom had some personal struggles that she was dealing with. I think she just kind of thought, oh, well, everybody's safe, I'm going to move on kind of thing. That's kind of how my mom would approach things, because she was having that was a tough time in her lifetime. And so I can imagine her just being happy that everything's fine and just carried on. But there was no lesson learned by my mom finding out about me in that pool. When my mom had her stroke, she was in a care facility, and I needed to talk to her. Something was telling me that I needed to tell her about that. And I told my mom, I said, you remember that one time when we lived in the apartment complexes in National City, the all-white 3 buildings, and how we lived across the street from a pool? And my mom said, yeah. And I said, do you remember that time about the water and how, I told you were asking about the wet clothes? And I said, and I was 5 and my brother Mike was almost 2. And she said, yes, I do remember that. And I said, well, and then that's when I told her about my story. And that was the first time I had ever discussed it. And she believed me. She believed in my story. She believed everything I had said. So when I relocated to my new place I live now, I'm an empty nester. Kids moved out, which is great. So now we live at the coast. And so I started going to church. Sorry, I don't want to get emotional on this one, but I started going to church, and I just felt like, life has just put me on a different, and I just wanted to start it off right, and glory be to God. And so I started going to church. I was in the Bible studies. I was into all of these things for 3 years. I worked really hard and would go to the pastor's house for Bible studies, going to all the church events and going to church every Sunday and getting baptized. They had a program for people to talk about things that, they can help with. Some things are a little over the top, but obviously I thought, maybe they've had talking to other people about these kind of experiences, and I was wrong. So when I approached the subject and told my story, it was an awkward silence and people looking at you like, this woman's either lying or she's nuts. And if not, then it's probably, who knows? I don't know. But obviously they stopped talking to me. And I was asked the next time I went to the program that I would go to another classroom. And the classroom they took me to was a little drug and rehab program. It was such a slap, it was such a slap in the face because I wasn't and I'm not. And so because of telling that story, I was judged. So people kind of shunned me a little bit. And so anyways, I don't want to talk about that anymore. It wasn't until I gave up on going to church, obviously, that really broke my heart. So here I am trying to figure out, finally hearing about these stories. I see a couple of videos on YouTube of people, like the kid, he was a 9-year-old kid where he got his best friend kicked him in the head, and he obviously died from that, from a karate movement that they did. And so when he did the flip, so I remember hearing his story and I thought, oh my gosh, the stories that everybody talks about, this is probably something that I had been through. And so I started watching and looking through, and then I found out about IANDS, IANDS, and I found their website, and then I started finding books about Dr. Raymond Moody and his investigation on children who have had a near-death experience. And so I found it, I was just drawn to it. And I was watching the videos and listening to people. I put a testimony out there on IANDS under the child near-death experience section about my drowning in the pool. And so that I put that back in there in like 2019. So I felt so much pressure. I felt, never felt like I was not the same like everybody else. I didn't feel like I belonged here. And when I was a kid, I was a loner. Kids that were my age, I felt more knowledgeable than them, so I wasn't really interested in them. So, I just kind of grew up with this loner thing that happened, and then with my mom going through all of her stuff. But anywho. So anyways, it was just kind of interesting to me as I'm getting older, that I'm processing this, and found some really good groups that I deal with on Facebook, near-death experience sites on Facebook that have been really great. And Ned is a really good person that controls that site. So I have people now. I have that feeling that I'm not alone. Now I'm able to address it finally. I believe that God was pushing me to feel all that, because I remember crying in church, like crying all the time in church and thinking, gosh, man, what's wrong with you? And people are going to think you're, with something. And so I don't know. I was starting to feel too emotional about it too. And so obviously that was his push to saying, okay, now it's time to start address that. And I think that my purpose in life, because of that experience, is to share it and to give the message that God is real and that there is a life after death. So I didn't have any fear. I believe I was well taken care of before it got too intense. Maybe some people have different experience, but this was mine. And who knows what's going to happen to me next? I mean, the other day we just had a tsunami warning. So you never know what your time's going to be. But that's my story, and I don't want to keep it too long, but it was very short. But as far as time goes, when all that was happening, I have no idea the sense of time and how long I was under that water. No one ever saw anything. I literally was saved by, if those were my guardian angels, or if that was God himself. I'm blessed, I'm grateful, and I have a knowledge that those other people didn't have, but they will eventually when they face Lord themselves. So, I forgive them and everything, and I say hi to them. We actually hug each other after all those years after that happened. I mean, it's 2024, going to be 2025. I mean, you can't hold grudges too long. So I do have my feelings hurt by it, but, I can give peace. So anyways, thank you so much for having me, and God bless you guys, and thank you for letting me share my story.
How is this story meaningful to you? If you're watching on YouTube, tell us in the comments. If you're listening to the podcast, leave a review and tell us there. If you or someone you know have a similar kind of story, please also leave that in the comments or send us a message at our website. Maybe we'll feature you. Visit nottheendnde.com. Be blessed and a blessing, my friends.